Welcome, Jurgen. It's good to have you here. We've been having a little bit of mic issues, but we'll see how we go. So
Yeah,
I'll
glad to be
hand it over
here,
to you.
Tricia, and I hope I can get it worked out.
All right, I'll hand it over to you and we'll see how we go.
Okay, so you want me to go straight into the presentation?
Yes, please.
All right, so I've got to get slide share up here, screen share. So first of all, let me say it's awesome to be here with all this wonderful Genesis community, and kudos to Tricia and her team for setting all this up. It's what I've seen so far has been fabulous. Now, hopefully, I've got a black screen here that I'm going to be able to share. I have to stop screen sharing for a moment and try that again. Bear with me here, the gremlins are in the works here. So screen share. Okay, hopefully, there we go. All right, I think we have my slide presentation up on screen, which is great, so I'm ready to go. So, as I say, it's really a great privilege to be here on this Genesis camp online. It's wonderful, Tricia, that you and the team have put this together. I'm going to be presenting to you today something a little bit different because I have to admit that I'm not a coder and I feel a little bit overwhelmed being in this awesome coding community. So I'm going to talk to you today about how you can add value to what you do with your websites by leveraging time and money with WebPower. So I'm going to show you some examples and tell you some of the things that you can do for your clients that will get your websites delivering them more value. Now, it was interesting this morning, Chris Lemmer talked about how you can differentiate yourself as a WordPress developer and as a Genesis coder, and that was a key to getting people to hire you. So this, again, is all about the same type of thing, but presented from a slightly different angle. So my take on this is that identify the best solution to your client's biggest problem and then automate it. So that's what this is all about. So Chris talked this morning, and I hope, Chris, if you're listening, you don't mind me quoting you a few times, talked about solutions as a pathway to where the client was going to. What I want to show you here today is some ideas of how you can automate those pathways. Now, start off with a story. So I had a client, or I have a client who does window furnishings, and she differentiates her business because she pitches it at busy professionals who don't have time to make appointments during the business hours and also don't have time to come into a showroom. So she goes out and visits them on their time, measures up, gives them advice, quotes for the furnishings, and then has them installed at a time to suit them. What she had been doing, though, was taking phone calls to make appointments, and then there'd be a lot of backwards and forwards negotiation about getting a time to suit both parties, and then finally they'd turn up, and 31% of the time the appointments would get cancelled at short notice. So she was complaining about all this time that she was spending setting up these appointments and then having to reset the appointments, doing the whole thing manually, and as a result, of course, she didn't have time to do other more important things like marketing her business, getting out there and posting wonderful images that she does now on Facebook and of the cases and the blinds and window settings that she set up, which are awesome. So she wasn't doing any of that because of all this time she's spending on that. So what we did was set her up with an online appointment system. Seems pretty obvious, but you can set this up within her website. As a result of that, clients go on there now, make their own appointments at a time when she's available, and you know, there are windows where she's available, and they find a time to suit them. And it's the automated part of it is around reminders that go out to clients, email reminders, SMS reminders, so that you know, shortly before she turns up at their doorstep, there's an SMS reminder saying that she's about to show up and do the measurements or have the consultation with them. And as a result, she's turned that around completely, and now she's got less than about 2 or 3% where she's having to reset appointments or, in fact, do anything manually other than show up there and then give the consultation, which is where she adds the most value. So that's the really important thing. A solution provided to the client to enable that client to then focus where they add the most value to their clients. So let's take a step back and look at what are the benefits of a website actually driving some automation in a business. Obviously, saves time and money, which is the title I chose for the talk, but it also reduces human effort where it's not needed and allows that human effort to focus on where it's best utilized. In other words, in this case, marketing that business, demonstrating the value that she provides by posting on the social media the case studies and pictures of what work she's done, which gets her a lot of business. These things run unattended. A lot of the systems, when they're set up properly, they will actually reduce errors compared to human intervention. And for us as developers that provide websites to our customers, it's an opportunity to provide a lot of value add. So I come back to what Chris was talking about this morning and differentiating what you do as a developer, as a website developer, from the people that, say, provide $500 websites and just put up brochures and maybe a few plugins that do various bits and pieces, but don't really provide a solution that's addressing the biggest need of the customer in the best possible way and then automating that process. So wanted to come back to a few examples, and this one's a pretty straightforward example. I'm sure we all know plugins that you can put in the website so that when you blog or when you post a page to the website, that it sends it out to social media, and some of those are very good and work quite well. We've been using various ones in the past. We've kind of moved off plugins like that for various reasons, and we've set up a completely different system, and this is the sort of system we now set up for our clients as well, for various reasons, because we think there's a lot of value to doing it this way, short of finding a plugin that's going to do all of this, and it gives us the ability again to add a lot of value. So what we actually do is we have a system where a new blog post, for example, is shared with a service like Buffer app. So I'll just jump over here, and so basically the system we use is driven by Buffer app and Zapier. Now you can do it with if this then that. So Zapier connects the blog or the appropriate pages. We can filter on categories, so we can conditionally post, and we can schedule it through Buffer, or we can have it immediately posting. The beauty of this, though, is that we can delay the postings through the Buffer app, so that if you publish something that in hindsight you realize you should have pressed save draft instead of publish because it wasn't quite ready, it doesn't go straight out to the social media, which is what most of the plugins do. Also, it allows you to then, within the Buffer app and using Zapier, go back and set up cycles that can repeat the most popular task based on the statistics that Buffer collects. You can also implement A/B testing by reposting the most popular posts, or reposting anything for that matter, with, say, a different headline to do an A/B test, and hence look at what is working best and in terms of social media posting. So you're not limited to the blog post going out with the original title. There's a lot of value to that because you can come back and show the client, here's the results of doing different things. This one might be a better headline than the first one we used because it's getting more response, it's getting more click-throughs, it's getting more interaction and engagement. So, you know, there's an ability there to provide a lot of additional value other than just putting in a plugin into the website that does this by itself. Then, of course, we've got systems where if someone retweets one of our blog posts, we can have that auto-tweeted as well, just to re-emphasize or resend it away. We have email set up that sends to the Buffer app. So the whole thing is kind of a cycle and a system that once set up virtually manages itself. So all you need to do then once this is all set up is either in the blog post or the pages, if you're hooking it up to pages, use the tags or categories or whatever filter that you're applying in the system so that it goes into the appropriate channel. Of course, I've got a note down at the bottom here, so we document all of these processes in great detail because some of them, and I'll show you some examples in a moment that are a little bit more complex than this one. So we actually document them for our own case. So we've got our own custom Google sites set up with the process document, and we can get any one of the team to actually go in and set one of these up. Process Street is a really neat tool, so process.st. We can actually set up a checklist of something like this with explanations and so on and make that checklist available to clients that decide that they want to do this themselves. So there's another value add that you might be able to provide clients. So I'll go on to another story or a case study, and this is around event registration. So we have a lot of clients right now that are doing some big events as part of a small business festival run here in our state in August. And with events, you know, you have to set up location, you have to do the presentation, prepare the presentation obviously, then you have to market it, then you have people registering for events, so you've got to register people, you've got to collect their names and contact details, you've got to go out and send them reminders, you've got to collect payments from them, you've got to send them invoices, you've got to enter those invoices into your accounting system. People may not turn up, so that you want to follow up with them, and then you want to, of course, engage with them on an ongoing basis, so you want to put them into your follow-up system. So there's a lot of things there that come together in terms of the event, and a lot of them are actually well beyond where the person running the event actually adds most value, which is delivering the event, bringing the know-how to bear, and sharing that with the audience, and of course from an internal point of view, marketing that event in the first place. Now here's what we've set up for this kind of thing, and here we've got as a central driver of the whole lot Infusionsoft, which is a CRM, so it doesn't need to be Infusionsoft, but it's just one that we're using a lot. And Dynamic Sync, which connects to Infusionsoft and does the event registration management. So we have our landing page for the event as we would normally do, and the form on the landing page which sends the contact details into our Infusionsoft system. The event on registration, we'll use Stripe to get the payment information and an add-on for Infusionsoft called Stripe Fuse, which sends all the payment information to Infusionsoft, and Infusionsoft then triggers invoicing and entries into your online bookkeeping system. Infusionsoft also then sends the contact details to Dynamic Sync that has the event management part of it. Now the beauty of something like this is you can have an event that runs say 5 or 6 times same event, different locations, different times, from the one landing page, from the one form, from the one payment system, and all of that is managed through the event registration management system. So then, of course, Infusionsoft has the details. We've set up within Infusionsoft reminders that go out on a regular basis with emails that are kind of a taster or a teaser, if you like, for the events, so that people, you're building intrigue with people, but again on an automatic basis, because you don't have to remember a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks out from the event that you've got to send all the registrants an email about a particular thing. So that's all set up and all happens automatically. If someone registers or enters their details in the form, and then when they get to the payment they change their mind or they get interrupted or whatever, there's a campaign there that goes back and reminds them and said, oh, we see you're interested in that event and you didn't complete the registration step. What was the issue? It kind of reminds them, go back and register if you got interrupted. And there's a sequence there that actually engages with those people and hopefully converts them if they've got cold feet at some point in that process. And again, the whole process is documented. So this is a really neat system once it's all set up, and it's quite complex to set up and quite complex to lay out and make sure that it's working properly. It's something though that adds enormous value to the client, and that the clients that are using this at the moment, the big danger is they don't even know the value of this in the background, because they don't know that all of this stuff is happening and they're not having to do anything. So that's probably the biggest challenge here, is making sure the client understands that there's all this stuff happening in the background that if they had to do manually, it would take up an enormous amount of their time. So there's that value that it brings to them. So I've got one more example that I just want to outline, and this is a really interesting case, and this one's a work in progress. So some of what I'm talking about here is a little bit of speculation, but we're pretty sure that we've got it all nailed. There's a couple of little programming things that we need to sort out. It's a business center that also rents out workstations and meeting rooms. And at the moment they have their admin staff taking bookings over the phone, taking bookings by email, and they have a couple of Outlook calendar, or they have Outlook calendars for every one of their rooms, and they have a sort of a more convoluted system for the workstations where they manually enter in the bookings. They get things like, well, they get a lot of people that book and then don't turn up, and so the room therefore is not available for somebody else to use, and if they don't turn up they haven't paid. So the payment is after the fact, after the people have used the rooms. The other thing they have also is in the offices that are full-time leased, there is included a certain amount of time of use of meeting rooms. Now, some of those businesses decide that it's more convenient to book a meeting room for every Tuesday, every Tuesday for the full day for the rest of this year, and they probably only use it every fourth Tuesday for an hour or so in the morning. So essentially what they're doing is blocking that resource from being used effectively. So that's a real issue as well, and it's really hard to manage that with a manual-based system. So here's what we're setting up there, and of course the heart of this one is the custom meeting room scheduling software that we're working on, that we've got about 90% working, and a little bit of stuff on the front end to do there. What that does is manage all the resources, essentially. Every resource within that custom scheduling software has its own calendar, it has its own booking system. There is extensive reporting on that, so that the business owner can go in there and check on the usage of each resource and see what return on investment there is. So back in the website, we're hooking up a booking page for every single office or meeting room or workstation, which has a calendar displayed so that people can go onto the website, book their meeting room, select their meeting room, book it there. They then pay for it straight away. So that takes care of a lot of the issues around no-shows, because they're committed now when they book. We're using Stripey like before to connect it into Infusionsoft. So Infusionsoft then allows us to capture the contact details, communicate or automatically communicate with them on an ongoing basis with reminders, SMS reminders, email reminders. If somebody interrupts their booking, we can go back and say, did you mean to do this, and so on. And also we've set up in there reward points or coupons. So that's for the folks that book often, or for the folks that are there booking every Tuesday and blocking out a resource. So what they get now is, within their lease agreement, they get a certain number of points to book these rooms, and when they reach that allocation, and Infusionsoft will monitor all of that, when they reach their allocation, they have to pay for the rooms from there on. So that's going to stop that booking of rooms without actually using them. So this is all around the problems that we've identified with that client, where those rooms are not being used effectively, and at the same time, of course, their staff are actually spending a lot of time working on the calendars here rather than doing the other things that they should be doing. Then we have we're using Zapier as well to hook things up, so that one of the things that Zapier does here is notify one of the admin staff of things like room setups, so that there are some manual things that need to be done here. If, for example, I book a meeting room for 10 people, I want water there, I need a whiteboard, I need an overhead projector, or I might need a digital projector. Actually, you don't use overheads these days. So those sort of things then need to be set up in the room. So that part's manual, but the notification comes through based on what I've put in the booking page. And then, of course, the payments are automatically entered into the bookkeeping system. There are invoices generated and sent out, and the bookkeeping system is updated automatically. So again, a problem that was actually twofold here, or threefold if you like. One being the amount of manual labour done to book these rooms. The second one was the underutilisation of the rooms based on people booking and not using them. And the third one, the fact that it was actually very hard to market the availability of these rooms online without making it easy for people to actually then go and book them. So this is our system that we've put together within a new website that is going to hopefully really drive the business of filling these rooms and automate it, make it very easy for them to manage it. So again, I just want to come back to the point that Chris Lemmer made earlier this morning. The examples I've shown here are just some ideas that we've found, but based on a client need, a need that we figured the best way to deliver on a solution to that need and then automate that solution. So really differentiating us compared to somebody else that would just redo the website. There are some other examples, of course, that you can do and you can automate within the website. So we've probably all set up e-commerce sites with online purchase, but going beyond that, you can set up auto invoicing, auto hookups to the accounting systems if people are using online accounting, inventory management, and of course adding purchases to a contact list so that you can follow up with them, engage with them, and so on. Lead capture, we all do lead capture, I hope. And again, automating follow-up, automating the nurture sequence, automating some of the conversion, particularly if you have digital products. Online event bookings we talked about. Online forms, of course, is a part of some of these systems. So again, with an online form, adding them to contact lists, and then the ability to automate the analysis of results and reporting of those results out to the people that need to see the data. Online appointments also I mentioned earlier. Now again, some more examples here. Email autoresponders. So the traditional ones, we can now go to full client relationship management systems that trigger marketing campaigns, that trigger other events, that trigger social media events, that trigger a whole range of different things. So the power of building a system on the back end of an email autoresponder is huge and can make a big difference to any business. Talked about the room booking system, so online resource bookings. So that that type of thing is already in place. In some ways, if you go and look at some of the big hotel chains, they have room booking systems online, but I'm not sure that at the back end there are things like auto invoicing and accounting, hooking up to their accounting systems and so on. Online training programs is a big one. So there's a lot of online training available these days, and these can be automated again to the extent of automatically collecting data, adding people to the contact list, monitoring who's at what level. If you've got a structured course that goes through different levels, then you can actually monitor who's at what level. So this type of thing is amazing for coaches. Coaches really love this sort of system because they, the typical coach that works one-on-one with somebody gives a lot of value by monitoring the person's progress and adapting the information and the coaching they provide to where that person is at right now in their life or in their business. And having an online course, you take away a lot of that stuff, but if you can set it up in a way that could be monitored, at what level of the course people are at and which bits are they having difficulty with, then the coach can actually go back in group sessions or even on one-on-one if they choose to and work with those persons. So that opens up the ability to work remotely or work with groups at a higher level and add more value to their clients. So that the ability to have training systems that have this sort of system built into the background is a huge value add that you could provide to your web clients. There's a lot of support ticketing systems out there, obviously, things like Zendesk and Freshdesk and Help Scout, just to name a few. Also, there's WordPress plugins you can use. There's a lot of automation that again could be tacked on the back end here, such as things like Status Cake, for example. You can use auto alerts to your support ticket system and then to your project management system that if a site goes down, there's an automatic task in the project management system that's marked urgent, that it's assigned to somebody to deal with, and so it bypasses or it runs straight through all the systems, and it doesn't need any human intervention until it gets to the place where it is going to be dealt with. You can even take this to another level where, if there's something that needs to be reset, say a reboot of a server or something, that you could even automate the whole thing based on a certain filtering to determine whether that was the issue that needed resolving. And I've talked about the social media posting briefly, so I think that's 10 examples, and I just wanted to briefly show you this slide. I'm not going to talk a lot about that, the tools we use. These are just examples. There are a lot of other tools you could use that do similar things. Obviously, the customizing your own program interfaces to integrate things is for the folks on this call who are whizzes at programming, shouldn't be an issue there. So there's a lot of opportunities there to really do all kinds of novel things. And what I really wanted to leave you with is come back to this message, and that's identify the best solution to your client's biggest problem and then automate it. So that's where you can add the biggest value to your clients, and you can differentiate on something other than code, to quote Chris Lemmer again from this morning. So finally, I'm Jurgen Strauss. My business is InnovaBiz. You can find me on Twitter at InnovaBiz. You can see us on innovabiz.com.au, and if you're interested, I also run and host the InnovaBuzz podcast for smart, innovative business owners that are interested in innovation and connecting things up like I've talked about. So we talked a little bit about the Internet of Things, but there's some awesome lessons to be learnt there from some fabulous entrepreneurs. So if you want to go and listen to that, that would be lovely too. I can't hear you, Tricia, so hopefully everybody else can.
No, we've got some questions for you.
Yeah.
First of all, are you going to be making your slides available so we can get your flowcharts?
Yes, definitely.
Great. Also, David asks, what's the one thing that you should start to do immediately to see some ROI in his business? What's like the biggest impact thing you can do with automation?
Okay, David, I guess that I'd sort of turn it back and ask, what is your business? But a simple thing to start, just to get an idea of what I'm talking about, is the social media thing, because we're all doing social media as part of our marketing campaign. And if you're posting blog posts, for example, that's a great example just to get an idea of what I'm talking about and some hands-on experience. That's every time you post a blog post, get it sent out to all the different social media things. And if you use something like Buffer, and I'm sure there's other tools as well that will do this, you can then start to get some data back as to how each of those posts are performing, and then start to do some experiments as well to teach you what headlines, for example, might be working better.
That's great. I love Buffer. It saves so much time. We have one more question. Do you set up separate accounts for all your clients with all the different services like Infusionsoft?
Yes, we do that. Most of these.
All separate.
Yes, we do it all separate. Most of these things don't have master accounts that you can kind of have white label or whatever you like to call it. Mm-hmm. So where we do these things, we need to actually sell to the client that it's worth paying an ongoing fee for these tools. So Infusionsoft is actually quite expensive, but the payback, so we can kind of demonstrate to them very quickly how we can get a payback by showing them some of the things we've done, and then usually they're quite happy to make that investment.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it really helps to get real results for businesses, because you're not just making a pretty website, you're actually setting up whole business processes.
That's right. That's what that's what the message is here. If you set up business processes for people, and one of the things one of the things we find as we do some of this stuff is that people don't actually have the process documented. So we kind of teach them the discipline of documenting their processes, and then obviously when we go to automate some of these things, we actually rehash the process completely. But in documenting the original process, it's kind of Chris Lemmer's discovery phase that he talked about this morning. So we actually take the time, what do you do? And then we drill down and say, well, what do you do when the client rings up and says, well, I can't make that time? I have to change it again. So, and we go down into really the nitty-gritty of that, and then we understand, first of all, what are all the steps involved, because often there's things that people sort of do almost without thinking about it, and they're critical steps, and if they don't happen, the whole thing falls over. And also they might be, or they usually are, steps that take up a lot of time, and because people don't think about them, they don't sort of think of telling you that there's this step that actually takes an hour every day.
Right.
The second thing then, of course, is because we do that, we then understand a whole lot of issues. We uncover a whole lot of issues that the clients might be facing. We can anticipate stuff that might come down the track, and we can redesign the process and give them something that will save them a lot of time, hopefully a lot of automation in there.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure we've all learned a lot and have a lot of ideas on how we can do this for ourselves now.
It's a pleasure.
Great.
Thank you
Thanks
for the
a lot.
opportunity.
Wonderful. Next up, we have Warren Denley, and he's going to be talking to us about how to handle do-it-yourself clients. So stay tuned, and I'll set Warren up, and I'll send you all over to his session as soon as possible. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jurgen.